Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and today we're going to be talking about the proposed melee changes that should be coming into Warframe sometime this year. So if you guys watched the dev stream last night, they actually hinted a little bit towards talking about changing melee and how it works, and they soon followed up with a dev workshop early this morning, which I wanted to kind of go over because I've seen a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people being scared, and kind of just being concerned about the direction of melee. And I want to just start this video off by saying DE are pretty smart developers. I've been playing this game for 5 years and they never seem to make too much of a mistake that they can't fix. So even though, taking it at its core and going off this dev workshop, a lot of people have a lot of concerns and stuff like that, I can kind of guarantee you that everything should be okay in the end up, and it's just going to eliminate a few playstyles such as spin the win and stuff like that, which ultimately, a lot of people seen coming. Some people didn't really agree with spin the win. We'll talk a little bit more about it as the video goes on, but I'm going to be taking extracts from the dev workshop and just kind of explaining it. So I'm going to open it up with this. We do not think that melee is at its best when you're facing a wall and spinning into it over and over and over again. And if we do not address that, any work invested in our melee rework could be wasted. We want to make melee better overall. Primary and secondary weapons have all got pretty painless overhauls this year. Melee's turn is coming. So if you guys aren't aware, using Maiming Strike and Blood Rush and Body Count basically allowed players to perch themselves up against the wall and constantly do a slide attack over and over and over again and basically kill any enemy that got close to you, right? Because there's a few main issues with this. The fact that your damage is insane because you have that 90% flat crit bonus from Maiming Strike. Then you obviously have Blood Rush giving you even more crit, and then crit just being very damaging in general. And then you also have the fact that using a pole arm or a whip or something allows you to actually hit enemies through walls, right? So what people could do is they could use a macro, which is basically like a order for your computer to set out or basically replay set button presses and then do that action over and over and over and over again. So you could perch yourself up against a defense target, for example, a cryopod and orc and derelict defense, and then just spin the win 24/7 while you go make a sandwich or something. And it didn't really look good on Warframe's melee combat. So if you were new to Warframe and you came in and you seen everybody just spinning around and stuff like that, and you thought, oh, well, this is endgame melee combat, you wouldn't really say to yourself that's super cool, right? Because, I mean, sure, it's cool for a little while, and it's cool whenever you use something like Vault or Neja or something that can basically speed up your melee attack speed, but, in the end, it would kind of get boring after a while, and it's not usually what you think of whenever you're thinking, ninja sword space combat, whatever. It's like, oh, you think ninjas, you think cool sword moves, and we'll talk a little bit about it more because there is a very cool video that DE went ahead and added in. So yeah, the melee review is taking the longest. It has the most complexity. You can equip melee, use combos, channel, stealth kill, hit multiple targets, and so on. Removing the clear spin the win free walls is our first step to this plan of making melee engagement better. So they're going to be taking a look at the whole Maiming Strike, Blood Rush, Body Count, spinning free walls and stuff to begin with, and then they're going to move on to, just improving melee overall, which, that's a good thing, right? So the first bullet point here was melee attacks, including spin attacks, will no longer sweep through walls or objects. So basically, you're not going to be able to do this anymore. You're not going to be able to hit enemies through walls with your melee weapon, which is a good thing, right? It makes sense. Your melee weapon, unless it's some weird invisible thing, shouldn't be able to go through walls. It just makes sense. So moving on a little bit, as for the rest of the steps, what follows is an open door to what we're working on internally. So basically all the changes that they've listed in this dev workshop are subject to change. I would say that one bullet point that we just talked about, that's probably something that is for certain, right? Everything else is open door, up for discussion, that type of stuff. So, don't worry yourself too much with all these different changes. This may not release exactly as described here, but we want everyone to be on the same page on what our plans are. So they're kind of doing the same thing here like they did with the damage 2.5. People didn't agree with the damage 2.5, so they kind of like went back on that, and they looked at primary and secondary and melee off separately. So they're changing up the master rank requirements of weapons, giving them buffs and nerfs and stuff like that to sort of put them more in line with like the type of DPS that they're dealing, right? So the higher the master rank, the more potential DPS a weapon kind of dealt. So like, let's say, for example, you know, the Axtiletto Prime, they're like master rank 13, and, you know, they deal more DPS than something that's like master rank 5. Of course, there's like certain cases like, oh yeah, the Adamus is crazy OP, and it's not, well, I wouldn't say crazy OP, but it's very strong, and it's not necessarily a high mastery rank, right? So let's go ahead and read some more of these bullet points here. While channel blocking is useful on paper, hello 100% damage plug plus enemy hits reflected back, channel damage has never really been celebrated beyond cool factor. So if you guys aren't aware, whenever you're holding down your left click and you're melee attacking, every single hit is going to consume energy, and you're going to deal more damage on every single strike where you're channeling, right? But no one really ever used that, apart from a very short period of time. Like whenever I started playing, channeling damage seemed like it was going to be the way to go for mods, but then other mods got introduced, which made more sense to kind of mod for. But yeah, channeling damage was never really, you know, oh yeah, you have to use this to get the most out of your damage. You only ever really used this if you were using Life Strike on your build. And Life Strike, basically 5% of any damage you dealt, you got back for health. So you could, like, you know, use like Exalted Blade Excalibur and hit one enemy, and you would have all of your health back, right? Because it took 5% of the total damage you dealt, and because melee damage scaling was so powerful, then it made it so that you didn't really have to channel for long to get all of your health back, right? So channel damage has never really been celebrated beyond cool factor. Getting rid of a separate channeling button frees up an input, allowing us for additional attack buttons. So basically what they're thinking of doing is adding your heavy attack to your left click, right? So instead of holding down E to do your heavy attack, instead you would, like, you know, maybe hold down your left click, and then every single melee attack after that would be a heavy attack or whatever. So pretty cool, right? So you'd still have your blocking on your right click, but then whatever you're holding on your left click, every single melee attack you did would be a heavy attack. And this is kind of, it sets the premise for everything else that they're going to talk about, because they're talking about, well, let's just go ahead and continue reading the bullet points, actually, because that way it'll make more sense. So additional attack buttons used on combos, making them easier to perform. So, you know, even just adding on like different combos and stuff to the different stances, just incorporating that left click or making certain combos easier to perform makes a lot more sense. So let's go ahead and continue. Channeling is blocking. So if you guys weren't aware, whenever you're channeling and you're blocking, you actually got more damage reflected back at the enemies, and you reflected, well, more damage basically. So you had a higher chance to deflect more damage. So it just made sense to channel while you're blocking. Channeling is blocking. Blocking is channeling. Normal blocking now performs like channel blocking. So they're basically making it so anytime that you're blocking, you're going to block like the highest percentage of damage that your melee weapon is capable of blocking. So of course that differs for every single type of melee weapon, right? So let's see, where was I at? I've lost it. Channel blocking currently does experiments such as constant energy drain or a separate resource block hits, adding to combo counter on are ongoing. So basically, like, they're just talking about taking a look at melee blocking and channeling in general, because they're thinking about completely removing channeling from the game and then just bringing regular blocking on par with how okay, for some reason wasn't able to block there, but they're just thinking about bringing channel blocking to sort of the norm, and then kind of changing up like energy drain and stuff like that, because if you were channeling while you're blocking, it did drain your energy. So they kind of have to make it so that, you know, something is sort of like expended whenever you're blocking. Otherwise you're going to be blocking all of this damage and holding down your block button like 24/7. It wouldn't make any sense not to be blocking if they didn't really give it something that had to be expended, right? So giving the player something that they have to spend to get all of that blocking makes sense. So moving on, we're still working on how or if to include the cool factor on channeling in combat. So they're just talking about making it look really badass. Combo counter minimum hits per tier adjusted significantly, so higher tiers can be reached more quickly and easily. Combo counter damage multiplier may apply to heavy attacks only, and all points are spent on attack. This is what has a lot of people kind of, I guess, worried, because a lot of melee weapons depend on your combo multiplier kind of scaling up, so your damage scales up as well. So that's how melee kind of works at the minute. The more damage you dealt, the more damage you deal, okay? So you'd have like corrosive procs, and you have your melee combo counter, you have your crits, and it all kind of worked in conjunction with one another to make it so that a lot of melee weapons that you had, let's take the Nakana Prime for example, the more you hit the enemy, then the more damage it dealt, and it allowed it to scale very well into like level 100 enemies and stuff like that, generally. And that's also how Blood Rush body count worked as well, because you would get more crit, more crit the more you meleeed, right? So it would just all work with one another, and that's what has a lot of people worried. So if they were going to do this, basically what they're talking about doing is you would build up your combo counter with your light attacks. So if you're just going ahead and hitting like a heavy gunner or whatever, you would hit that heavy gunner over and over and over again to build up, I just fell off the map, to build up that combo. And then you would waste that combo or everything that you built up in one heavy attack, which in terms of DPS, it doesn't really necessarily make sense to a lot of players, because ultimately you want to be dealing like as much damage as possible every second. So it's kind of a weird change. It's a weird change to make, and it also, you know, brings up the question, like, is Blood Rush going to be affected by this? Like, would there be a point in modding for Blood Rush body count and stuff like that? But they did say that they're adjusting like the combo multiplier, so you'd be able to get your 3 times multiplier a lot easier, even though that's kind of easy to get with the current meta of the game. It's kind of hard to talk about because we don't know fully what they're planning, right? So this dev workshop with the changes, it's very vague in the sense that we don't exactly know how much is going to be expended per heavy attack, or how much damage you're going to get for your heavy attack, or how heavy attacks are necessarily going to work, because all we really have to go off right now is 2 videos that they showed in this dev workshop that I'll have linked in the description below. So yeah, other than that, like, we don't really know how it's all going to work, right? So revisiting melee will focus on slam and heavy attacks to make them more useful and fun to use. Now, I did watch the gameplay which they included in this dev workshop, and it looks really cool. You know, the slam attacks, instead of like just like going up in the air and then looking down at the ground, you know, and then doing your slam attack that way, instead, like, let's say I was, you know, going up straight vertical, right? And then I looked over in that little patchy area over there where I'm aiming right now. If I was up in the air, jumping straight up vertical, and then I press my slam attack, I would kind of propel myself towards where I was aiming and then do a slam attack that way. And it just kind of made the melee combat, whenever you're jumping in the air, seem a little bit more fluid and have more impact, is what I could kind of say from watching the gameplay. But it just kind of looked like that in general, because I was noticing that, like, whenever they were meleeing the enemies, the invincible butchers, they seem to be staggering backwards quite a bit, and it just made it look like the melee had more impact. So what I think they're trying to go for is a more impactful way to have melee. Like, it focuses a little bit more on combos and just kind of like making your enemies stagger and just like really cool looking animations and stuff like that. That's what I think that they're going for. But again, we're gonna have to see how it kind of works whenever they implement it into the game. You know, what people are concerned about mainly is, let's hope that they don't make melee completely useless, right? That's kind of the primary concern. So you'll be able to dual wield any one-handed weapon with any secondary weapon, as shown many months ago. So if you guys aren't aware, they originally showed Haro with his Neil pistol, and a Gazelle machete, I think it was. But you're going to be able to use like any one-handed pistol and any one-handed sword. So let's take, for example, this year. You know, this is the highest DPS non-Zaw sword that you can get right now. So let's say you had your Pandero or maybe your Sicarus if it has a Riven on it. You could, you know, have your Pandero plus your machete or whatever in your hand or your sword, and then you'd be able to kind of dual wield those at the same time. But right now it's only limited to, you know, your secondary pistol and a glaive, right? So it has this really cool flow to it, kind of. They're making that so it works with every single one-handed sword and every single one-handed secondary. So that's pretty good, you know, no complaints there. Dodge canceling any melee attack. So let's say you're in this animation, you could roll backwards or backflip or roll sideways to kind of cancel your melee animation. Again, making melee seem a little bit more fluid and just have more of an impact to it, and just kind of weaving it into the sort of combat that Warframe kind of has, making it flow really well. That's kind of the aim, I guess. So FX treatment representing the true range of melee attacks will be implemented. So I'm guessing that's just like, you know how whenever you're attacking you have like the little trail that follows. I'm guessing that like on pole arms and stuff like that, it's just gonna make it so that like it matches up with the actual range of the polearm and stuff. I don't know. Again, kind of vague there. And then mod adjustments will come to speak to the above too, and they're going to be looking at everything. So they're going to be adjusting mods and just melee in general. So that is kind of it, really. They also mentioned that there's going to be complete stat and mass rank pass in line with the primary and secondary weapons. Base damage increased significantly to compensate for loss of channeling and combo counter multiplier on normal attacks, and stances will be revisited to normalize combo inputs, and all combos will be organized to be more useful and fun to use. So basically the main concern in the community at the minute is that if they follow through with this, then potentially if they do it wrong, melee would become kind of irrelevant, right? Because the DPS wouldn't kind of match up with, let's say, your Tigris Prime or any of your Axolotl. It just wouldn't make sense to melee, which, I mean, I melee a lot because of Spin the Win. It's kind of the meta in the game at the minute. Also, there's a bird outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it keeps on tweeting. Not that big of a problem, but it's whatever, you know. But, I don't think that they'll make melee completely irrelevant. I think they know what they're doing, and I think that they also know what they're going for, and it's going to be interesting to see how they actually go about it. I don't necessarily think that they're going to butcher it. I think they may release it, and a few things that they change will need tweaked a little bit. So, for example, maybe some of the melee stats, like they're going to have to significantly increase some of the stats in the melee weapons if they want to make it in line with, you know, let's say a fully stacked up combo multiplier Scanna, for example, you know? Like the Scanna better have a hefty increase to its base damage if we want to, like, you know, have the same type of damage that we would have with a Scanna that had its combo multiplier built up. So hopefully we see hefty increases to the base damage of most of the melee weapons, which, you know, that would, I think, make a lot of people happy. But just in general, let's hope that whenever they do this melee overhaul, let's just hope that, you know, those base damage increases aren't the only thing that we get, right? Let's hope that maybe some certain stances also have, like, stats which will increase our damage, kind of like Crimson Dervish does. Like, that gives you 300% extra damage. If they would implement more things like that on stances and stuff, I think that would make a lot of people happy. Like, you know, you have some stances which will give you your guaranteed slash procs, maybe just some that increases, like, maybe impact damage or slash damage or a certain stat on a certain combo. I think that would make a lot of sense. And it would also make it so that your melee combos, like this menu right here, look at the amount of space that you have over here on the right hand side. Like, you can include like more information here. So let's say, for example, Falling Star, this combo right here, you could make it so that it dealt like more impact damage or whatever. Of course, maybe that might not make any sense, but it's just kind of an example, and it would kind of give players more of a reason to play around with more of their combos. Because right now, basically the only thing I do whenever I'm meleeing, if I'm, you know, playing with my melee bot out, I would just, you know, block and just do that combo right there. I just do my blocking combo because, one, I get the benefit from blocking, and two, you know, they're usually pretty good combos as well. So let's say I'm using Blind Justice on my Nakana, you know, that would be the one that I would go for because that has a guaranteed crit on the slam. Not a lot of people know these things. So, you know, if they were to, again, make the melee combos have more of a benefit as well as increasing the base damage of all those melee weapons, I think that would make a lot of people happy. But it is going to be very interesting to see what they do with Blood Rush, Body Count, Maiming Strike, for example. Not necessarily sure what they're going to do with Maiming Strike. What I think that they might do is, well, saying that your melee attacks like Blood Rush, Body Count, it's not going to work on your light attacks anymore, so Maiming Strike just is kind of not going to work. Well, it might work. I don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen, so I have no idea. What I would say is don't spend a lot of platinum in Maiming Strike. It's currently going for about 300 to 450 platinum, depending on where you're looking. I wouldn't recommend picking it up, and I also wouldn't recommend spending a lot of platinum on things like Slide Crit Ribbons either, because one of my clan members, I think, spent 4k on a Skoliak Ribbon last night, and then they announced these changes, which, you know, you don't want to be getting yourself into that type of mess. But anyway, guys, that is pretty much it whenever it comes to the melee changes. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below and stuff like that. It's scary, you know, it's always scary whenever change happens, but DE are smart, and let's hope that they don't mess up. So, you know, that's all I can really say. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit that subscribe button and the little bell for notifications. It feels weird implementing that into my outro. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.